Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm muted. Okay, thank you. So, can you guys hear me now? Hopefully, yes. You missed all my funny jokes. They were so good. All right, according to this, I have noise, so this is good. If you hear someone laughing in the background, Mrs. Kaczynski is over to my right here. She said she wanted to listen into the show, so if you hear something that sounds vaguely, well, not vaguely.
Oh, there's a spider! There's a spider on the couch!
Okay, go upstairs. This is why you're not allowed to be down here while I'm. Right now, we're having a crisis. It is not coronavirus, unfortunately. But you are now can hear my wife having an absolute meltdown over it.
That's the same damn
Dear,
spider!
you now have 20 people on YouTube listening to you freak out.
Sorry, that's the same spider that came at me in my bed.
Yeah, and it's the one you almost broke your foot from. We had to sit in the emergency. No, she is serious, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I like spiders. I just don't like when they invade my personal space and scare the crap out of me. I'll try to be quiet.
So we might have a comedy version of the show today. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, that is everyone saying hi to you, by the way. So you might as well say hi to the audience. You've already been introduced.
Hi.
So that's my wife over there in the corner. She's just a little excited. And why not? It's an excitable time we live in. So I want to say thank you, first off, to everyone who's paying attention to the Coronavirus Podcast. So many people coming over here, familiar friends, a lot of people from COVID Report. Very glad to have you here this evening. Everyone says they love you, by the way.
Oh,
That's I know she's happy.
that's
All right,
nice.
all right. So everyone coming over from COVID Report, everyone coming over from the podcast. Would you believe it? 5,000 downloads today. I could not believe it. But people are concerned about this, and we should be. It's absolutely terrible what's happening out there. And I tell you, I'm just going to tell you two things that just drove me nuts. So we'll just start with this, and then we'll go into some other stuff. I'll share some stuff I've been working on. And as always, the main purpose of this show is for you to share your questions with me, and then we'll see, and I'll let you stump me as much as you want to. But I wanted to read, let me see if I find this 1 second here. I want to make sure that I did this properly. So, where is this? Give me 1 second, please. And I'm just looking one thing up because I know it was, at least I read, it was 2 hours ago. So we'll see if this is actually right. Hopefully it is. So Donald Trump writes on his Twitter, the coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. We are in contact with everyone in all relevant countries. The CDC and World Health have been working very hard and very smart. Stock market's starting to look very good to me. Well, if that ain't the biggest load of bullshit you ever heard in your life, I don't know what is. So we're going to start with that, and I'm going to read something interesting to you. And I'll share the link. So this is a link you'll want to check every day, so that you have the opportunity to keep abreast of what's happening. This is from cdc.gov, right? And this literally reports the number of cases in the United States which have been confirmed. And this one is actually claiming that there were, 14 cases plus 3 from Wuhan, China, and 36 from the Diamond Princess cruise ship, because they don't want to include them in the U.S. amount. But to do the math, it gives you a grand total of 53 cases. Now, in a time when the world is having thousands of cases, the United States has 8,000 people under quarantine in California alone. And that update is just from 2 hours ago. What do you think our wonderful CDC is doing? I will answer you that question. If you click the link, you already know the answer. They have tested 426 people. That's not today. That's all together. That's what they've done. Yeah, they actually, I know the numbers. They tested 12 people today. They decided to go down, get themselves a sandwich, maybe go down to Jimmy John's or something, and then check out for the rest of the damn day. And we're supposed to have faith in these people. How many of you people have faith in the CDC? You tell me. Do you think it's worth trusting them? I sure the hell don't. I think these people are going to get us killed. And I am being very forceful about it. Now, one thing that a lot of you who haven't been following this very closely but know about is, as much as the CDC has claimed there aren't people here with this coronavirus, they've done some interesting things. First, they were going to dump them from Travis Air Force Base in Sacramento to a residential living home facility in Costa Mesa, California. The town sued to prevent it. Then they were going to dump them at a FEMA training facility in Anniston, Alabama. They got Senator Shelby involved down there, and they aren't dumping these in Republican places, so they aren't going there. So I don't know where they're taking these people, although I have a source on the ground telling me in Alabama that they saw a bunch of helicopters and 18-wheelers down at the FEMA base. So who knows what the hell's happening down there? If I know more, so will you. Thing is, trust in a relationship requires someone to not lie to you constantly. And what we have seen during this whole outbreak, and I've been talking about this for 4 to 6 weeks. In fact, people who are here can attest to it. They will tell you because some people here know me from other areas. I've been, chomping at the bit even when everyone else thought it was crazy. And what I was saying is that this is something that has been a huge problem, and they're not being serious about it and not being real about it. Today we had the World Health Organization go out there and say, this is not a pandemic. We cannot call this a pandemic. And I'm going to tell you why they won't call it a pandemic, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here. And you're going to learn some stuff that I don't usually put on the air, but I want you to be aware of it. So check out this article from quartz.com, and it will surprise you so much, I'm sure, to know that this is caught up in banking. So the World Bank's pandemic bonds are designed so investors pay in the event of an outbreak. So what happened was the World Bank raised about $500 million, given all told, between different areas that they have to pay out if a pandemic breaks out that meets certain conditions. So what happens? Well, we can have people dying by the thousands and not have the World Health Organization call this a pandemic. Isn't it funny how that works out? Dana's just giving me a cup of tea. So thank you, dear. Anyway, so you can literally have a situation like this, and it is absolutely crazy, but it's something we've seen from lawyers. We live in a world where up is down and down is up. So I guess we really shouldn't be surprised that something like this happened. But I can lay out every bit of this. I've chased things around. I've went to the World Bank. In fact, I even sent them a message. Being the reporter that I am, right? I went out there and it's like, well, who are you giving money to and how are they getting it? Now, I don't expect a response from them, but if you find out that I've accidentally shot myself in the head 5 times, please know that my last correspondence was with the Department of Pandemic Emergency Financing at the World Bank. I'm just telling you so that you can actually know about that, so that because it's really important. And what they did, and it's not terrible what they did. Let me be very clear what they did. What they wanted to do was create money for these feel-good funds, right? And socially responsible financing. So they went out there and they said, look, we'll give you a 7% rate of interest if you agree to certain exemptions and 11% of others. Put $500 million in a fund. It won't all be used, but it's for 3 years, designed for pandemics. And this was done after Ebola broke out in Africa. What ends up happening is that money was about to expire in July 2020, and then these people will get the full amount of their money back. So if they can string this out just a little bit longer without declaring it a pandemic, what happens is some people stand to make about $500 million. Now, I would hate to think the world is being held hostage over $500 million, but it's not the craziest thing that sort of pressure could have been very big at the beginning. And at this point where it doesn't matter now, maybe they're playing legalese where they're like, okay, well, we'll go ahead and give you loans and we'll give you money, because the way this program works is it was designed to give money free and clear to countries who had a real problem during the pandemic. These were not loans, these were grants. And banks do not like grants, because when grants happen, that means they're not making money. So the banks are probably trying to play it both ways. The World Bank works in association with the World Health Organization. If the World Health Organization doesn't declare this a pandemic, my understanding of this is, or if they don't declare, if it ends up being a biological weapon, which is also a little different, they don't have to pay that money out. And so what they are doing is they are running the clock along so they make money on both ends. How much? Like bankers. On the first end, they make the money for their lenders, who are in for a lot of money on this, to go ahead and not send this along to the countries that would want to otherwise declare these funds at the open window. Secondly, they also will make money in the loans that they would be able to sell, assuming this whole thing holds together. I am not making that assumption, but they certainly are. And so when you really look into this, and I've been sharing all the links along the way so that you have the opportunity to see these, because I think it's really important. I mean, I know it's not fun, believe me. I spent hours today reading bank prospectus documents, but this is really the way, in a lot of ways, the world does work. And we'll even show you, this was the actual grant or derivative swaps that they made, where they would lose the money if the pandemic happened, but if it doesn't, then they get to make the money. And what they're doing is they're trying to run the clock out. And the World Health Organization that Donald Trump is so celebrating, that has been utterly clueless this whole time, that hasn't even declared this a pandemic, is at the heart of it. So do I know that's what happened? No, I don't know. But can I point every step of the way? Well, the evidence is before you. This is the sort of research we do. And this is what Coronavirus Central is about. We're not just like looking at one piece of this. We understand that it's a really big moving puzzle, right? There's an economic component, there's a medical component, there's a societal component. And at the heart of it is that if we're going to have trust and get through this in any way, shape, or form, we need a degree of honesty. And right now, we're not getting it. We get lied to from our government and they say, thank you, can I have another? There was a great story I saw just before I came on here, and it was from Brazil. I'll share this with you if I can find it. Give me one moment, please. And we were looking, where did I put it? I guess I must have put it on the Twitter feed. Okay, so what happened was in Brazil, they have a big thing, for Carnival, for, before Ash Wednesday, before Mardi Gras, all that stuff that ends up happening. So what we were doing is we were looking at what was the basis on which they were allowing people in there. Because when you're having a worldwide pandemic, people are sick. It's probably not a good idea to have a couple 100,000 people gathering in what is essentially a public orgy. Not so great. So here's what we do. Okay. Reuters, what are they doing? Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to test people coming from Italy and even Germany and make sure that they don't have symptoms of coronavirus. Now, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, which if you haven't, why haven't you? You're now on notice. What you would know is that 80% of the cases are asymptomatic. And actually, what you could do is you could have one person potentially, like happened in Korea, reach 80 people. And with how quickly this has been spreading, imagine a cruise ship the size of Brazil. Not the best thing, but that's what's going to happen because no one is taking this seriously, and that's okay. What we are seeing is bureaucrats move away from taking responsibility at every step of the process, and as we go through this, that problem happens over and over again, and there's just no solution for it, and that's why you end up with these horrible rates of death. We'll do a quick review. This is COVID-19info.live. Very good site, has a lot of details. 79,579 confirmed, sick, 2,629 confirmed deaths, and they claim 25,000 people have recovered. But we know because there were stories out earlier today, we covered that on the podcast, that in fact people got sick again, and this is a big problem. Just to give you the quick numbers, China says they got it covered now. We'll talk about that in 1 second. 77,152, South Korea 833. Italy 230, Japan 159, Singapore 90, that's a new case, Hong Kong 79, Iran 61. And it's saying here that 12 are dead, even though their own legislature is saying that 50 are dead. So yet another lie we've been caught in the middle of. And who knows the truth of this? So what we know is we are not being told the truth, and that the governments of this world, ranging from communist China to the U.S., have no interest in this. My friend, I recently became friend with Zach Voorhees. Some of you may know him. He was the Google whistleblower who wrote, I believe it was that he wrote that letter about the fact that people were not being treated well because of their conservative views over there. So he ended up getting tossed from there. Pretty well-known person. And I've been working with Miriam, I forget her last name. She does the bee videos, but we've been collecting a lot of information on this, learning a lot about what's happening out there. And what we find is that there is just such awful corruption around this whole thing. And you just grab it everywhere you look where they're lying about it. And that, that we found Zach went over there and he checked. Some of you who are channers will appreciate this. They were looking at the sulfur dioxide standards coming out of Chongqing. Chongqing is to Wuhan what Pittsburgh is to Philadelphia. They're cities that are near each other, very large cities. And what ended up happening was they had a huge sulfur dioxide plume that happened nonetheless, even though they're in quarantine and in lockdown, at the same time that we have reports that at least 40 incinerators were sent. We saw one picture where they were sitting at the hospital, and we have Miles Guo out there saying literally, now, I don't know if his English was not good enough, but saying 1 million incinerators are around the country. Now, I don't think that's accurate, but I do think that it's very true that we see a lot of bad things happening, and we don't have information out of Wuhan. I talked to someone in Shanghai and Beijing, and all they can tell me is the media says everything's fine. No one's getting in, no one's getting out. Is it terrible there? We don't know. But what we do know is it's bad in Iran. We hear about many people dying. I've talked to 2 people who are living there now, and they are saying that they have significantly underestimated it, that martial law basically exists in Qom, which is the holy city of Shiite Islam. So all of these things, and look, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing on the ground, but literally one of the parliamentarians reported these things. So this is some of the information that we're getting on the ground out there. What it suggests is that everything that we're hearing from our governments are lies, and so we ask what the truth is, and they don't want to tell us. And the interesting thing is the markets are starting to get smart. Today we saw the market go down. I don't know what it closed at, but it was down around 1,000 points all day. So I'm going to assume it closed near that. And what ended up happening there was that the markets can no longer pretend that coronavirus doesn't matter or that COVID-19 doesn't matter. What ended up happening was very simple, that they've reached the point where they are now questioning if the central banks can continue to buy this out. And I noticed something very interesting. I shared this to my Gab account, my personal Gab account, but no one seemed to connect the dots. Why would the gold price be going down in the middle of a crisis? What's happening is, supposedly, the Bank of International Settlements, which is basically the bank between countries, is now actively buying gold up off the market in order to prevent fiat currencies from going downhill. That is what seems to be happening. And for those who understand finance, what that basically is that's the last stop before you have currencies go out of control, where the dollars themselves start to lose money. And because you have to remember, I mean, the idea is, and what the market's been pricing in here is they've had two assumptions. They've had the assumption that, number one, that this is a one-quarter thing that will primarily be contained to China. What's happening in South Korea has disproven that, as well as the problems in Japan and now Italy. That's not going to happen. You also can see indirect evidence based on the number of firms in China. 85% of small businesses there will close if their economy isn't running within 3 months. So they sent the people back to work. They forced the people back to work. We had multiple reports on this. But ultimately, they're just going to get sick again. The production isn't going to go there, and people aren't going to ship goods in and out of there. That's another problem. So you ask a question if crypto is being suppressed. What might be happening is you could see the devaluation of different things across the board. I think what is happening is, rather than crypto being suppressed with respect to the dollar or other currencies, what we are seeing is a move away from currencies themselves as having social value. I mean, for currency to work, right, it's a social credit system. I mean, really, I mean, it's, as much as that phrase scares people, it is. It's saying that what you are worth, what you are doing is worth so much to me that I am going to give you this that would instead buy me this. I mean, this is how fiat currency works at this point. I mean, it's really not that different than how they want to do it with social media. So what ends up happening is, if they send these along and people are like, well, I'm not trading my toilet paper for that, or I'm not trading my bag of rice because that's worth a lot more in this sort of environment where supplies have broken down and we don't assume, where scarcity is remeasured. Let me put it this way, economically speaking. In a breakdown scenario, scarcity moves to creating tangible goods which are inaccessible as having greater value than the currencies which previously purchased them. And so what happens is, literally, 2 months from now, you could maybe go to your landlord and say, hey, I'll trade you a week's worth of food for the house. And then it'd be like, for the rent? I'm like, no. For the sale of it. You sell me the deed, you can have. That's not fair. And that's what happens. Markets adjust over time. And that's what I think we're starting to see here. So you see all currencies down and you see tangible goods up, because tangible goods are going to be difficult to get. But here's the catch to it. It has to be a tangible good that's not just a contract, but a tangible good you actually hold. And that's the problem. A lot of the things you see, like gold, for instance, having a contract for something 30 days from now is one thing. Can you claim it? I don't know. But as Raven's writing, and I very much agree with this, if everyone's exposed, survivors might survive. Second and third blooms, maybe. Hit it will start again if it becomes isolated across groups. And that's the one scariest thing about this whole disease. We really just don't know how hard it's going to hit, if it's going to hit multiple times. And the evidence, such as it is, I mean, this is very preliminary, but it absolutely, to me at least, suggests that it will. And I'm very concerned by that. I've been chomping at the bit about it as much as anyone will listen to me, that's very likely to happen. So I'm going to share another link with you. Don't watch it now, but this is a 12-minute video. It's out of China. I think it's out of China, from some doctors or whatever, but it's a really good description of what it actually does to you. A lot of people don't understand what the angiotensin converting enzyme is. And I know a lot of people were thinking originally, well, this is just a disease that affects Asians. And it is true that, proportionally speaking, the Asians do have more occurrence of ACE in certain parts of their body, but it is something that all humans have that can be damaged heavily by the virus. And in fact, what we found and what this video reports is that the ACE, how should I put this? What ends up happening is that when your ACE is properly converted, you basically go from you have more flexibility in your blood vessels, in your arterial walls, your endothelial tissue, basically. When this doesn't get made because there's interruption that happens for any number of reasons, from coronavirus to anything, what happens is you can have hardening of the walls can crack, the heart can crack, there can be kidney problems, liver problems, testes problems, yeah, this goes straight for your balls. That's literally what this virus does. It's true. And these sorts of things are out there, and this video will help explain it much better than my sort of lay explanation can. But what you need to know is that anyone can be hurt by this. Everyone can be. If you're older, you're in trouble, but a lot of young people are getting sick. We know a number of cases of people who've died in their 20s and 30s and, whatever this is. And we don't know. We may have this likely will be an endemic annual event, but I am not at all convinced that it won't be recurring at a faster rate. We don't know how fast our body produces antibodies, how long the titer, that's the quantity of antibodies, will last, and we don't know when it will release in such a way that people can get sick again, and if they're going to get sick worse the second time. I can't tell you those things. I wish I could. I really don't know, and I don't think the researchers know. If it was out there, the odds are I would have found it, because I'm listening to the people who would know these sorts of things. So that is where the research has led, and I'm really trying here in the next day or two to go into the economics of this, because we just don't have good information on the ground. I'll give you one other example why we don't. This is something I am going to put in the podcast tomorrow. This is from TheVerge.com, and what it basically says is China is literally chasing down any person who's saying anything negative about the virus and throwing them in jail. I mean, who knows? They probably throw them into quarantine camps. And, there's quarantine camps. If everyone's sick and you're not, what do you think is going to happen to you? And I think people understand that. And they probably have gotten a hint. And so people aren't saying anything except that it's happy, happy, fun time in the PRC, It's the 100-acre wood with Winnie the Pooh. It's absolutely terrible over there. Was that funny?
That's terrible.
And why are you laughing if it ain't funny?
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing. I should be ashamed.
You shouldn't be laughing. You should be ashamed. No, but I'm making funny. So look, we have a gallows sense of what?
Nothing.
Oh, we have a gallows sense of humor here, and we absolutely have to have it, because if you don't, you're going to lose your shit. It's just the way it is. I mean, you'll go insane, and we don't want that to go insane. That shadow you see, that's my wife.
Yeah, sorry.
Across the camera there. She's just looking around grabbing for some stuff. You going up? Getting me to grab that?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So anyways, you look at this article, and it's on The Verge, like I said, and it's just saying, it's literally, they had "I want freedom of speech" as a hashtag for hours in China. And I'm sure the Chinese government didn't like that. And to tell you the truth, what's happening here is serving literally to, how should I put it, make people angry enough to actually go ahead and want to do something in China. And that's probably why you see bodies getting burned. And I wouldn't be surprised if political dissidents are getting swallowed in this. And if we're not paying attention to Hong Kong, I mean, think of how many bad things governments like to do when people aren't watching. So we'll see. We'll see what's out there. But you've been playing Plague Inc. since last night. If you've played Plague Inc., if you haven't played Plague Inc. as endemic games, I will tell you it is actually really a brilliant game. And I would make the recommendation that it's worth playing for catharsis on the one hand, but secondly, to learn a little bit about what a really damaging disease would look like. And what you find is that it's a game of human psychology as much as anything else, that people will only be afraid of threats that are immediate and that are perilous, and that otherwise we let a lot of things happen. What, you guys want to see? Look, everyone always wants to see you. People requesting you.
No. Guys, it ain't happening tonight. I feel like crap.
So everyone's always asking for Dana. Dana will eventually come on.
I'll come back, just not tonight. I don't feel so good.
Okay, so there you go. So the missus has spoken. The Queen has made her proclamation. So what were we talking about? We were talking about WeChat, right? And we were talking about what was happening in China, and that fundamentally these governments, not just China, but everywhere, they're getting a chance now for no one to look at what they're doing. And the thing about a pandemic is, if it's really bad, that we're going to have a situation where a bunch of people are going to die anyway. And so, in the same way that those purge movies happen, it wouldn't surprise me. And I know this is reckless. You can't say this. Well, governments are pretty awful. They're a conspiracy of thieves as an anarchic system. They're going out there and they probably will remove certain threats to their own existence. And that's why a lot of people in the U.S. have been rightfully worried about FEMA camps for a very long time, including me. I mean, I've had situations where I go across the border. I'm a political dissident, and I've had the government give me the paces for sure. And I don't want to make it about that, but these sort of things happen. And this is one of the challenges time on coronavirus. Everyone wants to talk about this very narrowly. I'm just going to talk about the medicine. I'm just going to talk about the politics. I'm just going to talk about the economics. They're all interrelated, and we have to talk about that. When you're going to do the like within Plague Inc., this is a perfect example. What you find is the failures in government actions make it such that plague spread everywhere, and that literally the inability to communicate and cooperate is the heart of this. So that was something we discovered very quickly on. It's been a huge problem, in this scenario, because honestly, if I was designing this as a bioweapon, we would have wiped out the world. And it's really sad that you have so many bureaucrats and politicians trying to cover their own asses instead of recognizing that they are allowing an existential threat to humanity. And I say that with all seriousness. To spread. I mean, and now we've got only one option left. We can now go out there and we have to self-quarantine. And it's a bit early for this in the US, perhaps. I mean, I don't think it is in terms of spread, but in terms of awareness, because you have that long asymptomatic period up front. And I think, but I'm not sure, that because of the fact that if there is a difference between Asians and Caucasians, which I've been asked about a lot, it will probably show slower in Caucasians, but it won't necessarily be less damaging, because even though we are less exposed in terms of internal differences, what happens is once those viruses get their first hold of RNA, then they can go ahead and spread it internal to the system. And that was what will happen. So it'll take longer to take here, but it's not to say that the outcomes will be any less bad, which means that what we're going to deal with is this asymptomatic spread. And it's something I'm incredibly worried about, and we'll be talking about. So I don't know. I mean, right now, let's see, we're coming up on 27 minutes. I have gone for about a half hour on rants. So if you guys have some questions or things you want to talk about, things you want to throw out there, this is that part of the show. And if not, then I'll take a quick peek through the news here and see if there's anything interesting that is happening out here that is worth sharing. And if not, then we will continue about our way. But I will say this, that I think the response from the American government has been pathetic, anemic, and awful. And that pretty much most governments around the world have done a really miserable job with this. And I guess it just goes to show you that government sucks, man. I mean, some of you who know me independent of this know that I don't have faith in democracy. I really don't. But the authoritarian systems have been almost as bad. So, I mean, I guess the one thing we've learned as a universal truth is that government sucks. It doesn't represent our peoples, and it really doesn't do anything too useful for us. It's good at sucking up taxes. I mean, it's pretty efficient at things when they work well, but it doesn't have the ability and flexibility to change with things. And I don't know. I don't know what we do going forward here. I mean, I can give you a projection for the future, my own thought. The fake news says the death toll is 26, 29. I bet you could add 2 zeros to that, and I'm not joking. Most of those are going to be in China. But we've had numbers. I mean, have you guys seen the Miles Guo rant? You should see the Miles Guo rant. Let's see if I can find it real fast for you. I'm trying to think how would be the easiest way to grab it. Because, the problem is, I have so many windows up. It is absolutely crazy. And I've let myself, those of you who know me a little bit know I'm kind of a smart guy and a little bit of a nerd. So I'm always kind of ahead of the game when it comes to things. And people are like, why are you saying that, Tom? You don't know. And then they're like, why don't I ever learn to listen to you? I'm like, well, why don't you learn to listen to me? Make your life a lot easier. But people don't want to do that because people think, well, I don't know what the hell people think. They don't think very much. Too often, but you guys think. You're here, obviously, so that's worth something. And if you're someone watching it, I'm just frustrated, man. I'm doing this. You don't even want to know how much information I've had to absorb. But Miles Guo is a Chinese dissident, and he claims that there are many hundreds of thousands of dead. And I think that, like Raven saying 1 million dead in the Wuhan immediate answer or area, very possible. I think that's not an unrealistic estimate based on the numbers out there. And everyone from the mainstream to the World Health Organization, the different countries, even most of the commentators, they're all carrying water for the CCP, except for probably Steve Bannon. And for me, Tom Kaczynski, I'm going to tell you, the Chinese Communist Party is awful. Communists are bad. I mean, they lie and they kill people. This is a perfect opportunity for them to consolidate. Those of you guys who studied the Holodomor or the Katyn Forest massacre, you'll know. I mean, these things are out there. Or the whole Stalin regime. I mean, what they did with the gulags in Ukraine. Or in China's history. China's had these situations before. During the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, some historians think the number of deaths actually jumped up into, at least the 8 figures, well into the 8 figures and into the 9 figures. And I'm dead serious. Those things are very possible. And how would you know? I mean, let's be honest. If there's 1.3 billion people in China, that's the number, and they come out of this with 1 billion people, how the hell would you or I know the difference? I couldn't even tell you where most of these places are on the map. And this city, Wuhan, I know like nothing about it. It's Pittsburgh's sister city. It's bigger than New York. China's just bleeding people. And they had a problem. Let's be blunt. China had a couple problems coming into this. China's problem number one was that one-child policy where everyone aborted the girls and kept the boys. So they had a bunch of dudes. Imagine the incel problem times 1,000. That was China, right? So you had that issue. You had the fact that Taiwan was deciding, we don't want to be part of China anymore. And Hong Kong's like, yeah, neither do we. India's starting to get tougher with them. So what happens? China has a breakdown scenario, and quite frankly, they still have a hammer over a lot of us. The FDA put out a study, or rather didn't put out a study, they leaked to Axios, that there are 150 drugs, some of which we presume are very important, that they're going to expect shortfalls on very soon. They won't tell anyone what it is, but I know this, antibiotics are going to be on that list. 97% of those come from China. Some of you watch Tucker Carlson, right? Tucker was saying about 2 months ago that LA's on the verge of the bubonic plague. Now, the bubonic plague killed between 50 to 80% of the people who got it, and it was only stopped because of antibiotics. So what happens when those homeless camps in LA, where they're not getting food, where the rats are running around, and where everything is going nuts because we, had a policy of not doing anything for public health over there in California, they can't get antibiotics, and the plague starts to spread while you're having these sort of situations. Is that too much to imagine? Maybe. But this is the problem. I mean, and the one thing no one wants to talk about that's really, really interesting, and let's just speculate about it. Let's go ahead and do it. Who did this? Was it, you guys tell me your theories. Was it an accident? Did someone screw up at the Wuhan virology lab? Do you believe that a bat pissed in someone's mouth and out came coronavirus? That's what they want you to believe. Either that or you had, bad sushi. Are we supposed to believe this? These are the outcomes that we're told, that a virus that has all these terrible traits just accidentally popped up, all of a sudden. Even though we see that China was responding very quickly and they knew were these issues. I have one friend who thinks the China did it to themselves, saying that this way they could spread a bioweapon, kill some people they didn't want, and go ahead and make sure the rest of the world got infected. Remember, January 23rd, the day before the quarantine, they let 5 million people escape Wuhan, dispersing them like seeds to the wind to spread all this happiness. The Chinese people, some of them think the CIA did it. Maybe. I'm not going to say our agency wouldn't do that. I'm not going to say Mossad wouldn't do that. It doesn't seem to make sense to destabilize the system. Maybe there is some big elite conspiracy out there. Georgia Guidestones, 500 million dead. I don't actually know. I do know that this is something that is far beyond anyone's control. I don't know what is going to be the issue there, but I think it's a good question. For myself, I will tell you what I believe. I believe that this is bioengineered. I believe that strongly. I believe that everyone is covering for everyone else, because if someone has to be responsible for all the deaths and damage caused by this, then that someone's going to have to pay the price. And a lot of times, what happens, it's like when a mob goes and rushes a place, right? That nobody takes responsibility because it was the mob. Because sometimes there are things they want to see done that nobody wants to take accountability for. That might be what's happening with coronavirus. And I don't know, you see all these things about 5G, you see all these other connected bits, and I don't know how all the pieces connect. What I do know is this: the global financial system, unless this ends now, is going to be broken from this. And I don't think it recovers. There is so much debt and derivative problems. There's no government bailout that can happen, because who the hell is going to trust the governments? I've demonstrated to you day after day on the show, and even during this little thing, all these problems, all the ways they've lied to us, and they're going to continue doing it. It's every country, man. Pick your things. The people in Iran tell me their country lies. The Israelis tell me their country lies. Every one of us. And look, there are real issues. And when you're in America, identity politics are real issues. But I'm going to tell you something big. The bigger issue we are dealing with right now is that we have a coalition of governments that are screwing over the people, that don't give a damn about any of us, and are doing everything they can to save their own skins and watch us rot while they go along. That's the truth. And we know that because these idiots can't keep a secret for anything, and yet we are forced to believe they're either this inept or this deceitful. And which is it? And considering that the banks, who are not known for being dumb people, were literally throwing trillions at this market to keep it alive up until now, I have to believe they know something we don't. You hear rumors all over the place. Do I know what's true? Do I have secret knowledge? I wish I did. If I did, I'd probably share it, you know? I mean, that's what I'm out here doing because we have to survive together, and that's what I'm doing up here in Maine. I you know, for all the things I did, probably the most useful thing to this point is I had a letter to the editor for my local paper, and I put it in there because I wanted a lot of people to be aware. And I'm proud that I did that because you need people to know in your area. I mean, I hate to say it, but local government or local order, let's put it that way, might be all you have soon. That's what's happening in China behind the scenes. Oh, so don't worry about me touching my face because I will tell you something. I have insanely good equipment if and when I go out, which I don't. If I did go out, actually, I would shave the beard and you get to see me look young again. All the gray would be gone, you know, all that. But it absolutely is imperative. I will say a lot of people ask me this question. Good to see you, Eki. Actually, let me say hi to everyone who's here. Good to see you, Woke. Good to see you, Will. Good to see you, Gregoric. Am I saying that right? Please correct me. I don't know how you can correct me, but, you know, put those little like phonetic alphabet thing. Can anyone read those? I can't read those. Mm-hmm. You know, they put like the up sound, death down E that looks like, you know, the 4chan posting. It's absolutely terrible. But anyway, so, you know, one other thing before I forget, since Throttle Grim brought this up, central banks hold over 50% of the gold reserves, yet tell us to have faith in that currency. Don't discount that this thing could be an effort to move some of the currency out of countries to banks. China is the single largest holder of gold at this point, I believe. And to defend their currency, they're going to have to collateralize some of that. And who's going to buy it? People and bankers on the market. There are games that happen. And you know what? Whatever horrible things you believe, they're not nearly bad enough. There are people who are so bad in this world. I mean, they're evil. They're satanic. You remember spirit cooking, all that crap, Pedogate, all those things. People are really like that. I mean, there's not a lot of people, and most people are not, so they can't imagine that level of blatant sociopathy. And so that's how it is. So, but I wanted to share with you. People asked about masks. You want to get goggles. You want to get goggles that don't have holes in them. That are really good. You want to have N95 or better masks. Should I get masked up for them? You think that'd be fun? Would you go get me my mask and my thing so they can see? Are you comfy?
I'm really comfy.
My wife informs me she's too comfy to go ahead and make the show entertaining.
If you really, really want me to go get it,
you want to do paper, scissors, rock for it?
Oh,
just one, right?
Dude,
we're on the air.
Fine. 1, 2, 3, and go.
It's a tie.
No tie.
1, 2, 3, go. I won! I never win!
You never
I beat the psychic. Okay, so the wife is going to help us out here, so that's a big win. So it's all right. So the mask is just right there, and the goggles hanging in the back room on
the heavy duty one or just the little one?
No, the little one in the back there. It's just hanging on the corner of it.
No. Which mask?
Oh, no, don't bring me the heavy duty mask. We're going to bring the other one. Oh. I have a gas mask, but that's upstairs. I'm not going to make her go do that. But I'm going to show you what basic good preps look like, and you can do this for about $25. So this will help you out. So this will be live demonstration because everyone else talks about their credentials. My credential is I'm the guy who's good at being paranoid. And being paranoid will keep you alive, my friends. And that's what I'm doing. I'm telling you what's out there, and I'm helping you put together. So I try to be realistic about things because realism is important. But we have a little bit of fun. We're trying to relax. I'm trying to relax, man. I mean, you know, I'd say I'm losing my hair, but honestly, genetics did that. I blame the testosterone. We'll see if that story holds up. But there's a lot going on out there. There are things that people need to know about. And I've had so many people today reach out to me, and they're like, Tom, is this real? I bought food. I bought water. You're doing the right thing. Don't let the whole everyone else is listening, so I will, you know, do this. Okay, so we'll start with that. So these are my solid work goggles. These are like $12 on YouTube. What you'll notice is that they have a seal, right? All right, so up here I'm looking. Usually it's the other one. So it's got a nice seal on it. Little thing on the back. Nothing can get in there. All right, put these on first. And people are overlooking the eye thing. All the doctors, too. It's crazy. So we're going to be ready. Was that the Tucker alarm?
Yeah, sorry.
Funny. All right, so here we go. And this is an N99 mask. It has a separate filter in it. Very nice, very comfy.
It looks
See
like
how
a
it's out
smiley
front of it?
face.
It does look like a smiley face, doesn't it? So you look a bit like Antifa, but, you know, you're actually doing it for a good reason. So this is okay. And it's a little weird because you got to get used to it. And you got to, like, rig this so that you get a good seal in both places. So I'm not really doing this super tightly because, honestly, I'm just here. But you can see I am functioning. I do look terrifying. So if they come arrest me as a terrorist, this is now the new coronavirus chat official look. But hopefully you like this. I am calling from the People's Army of Liberation. We are going to fight this virus and kill it like the enemy it is. How's that? So you seem to be a cheese ball there. And hopefully you guys will know it doesn't. You want me to do the song? Hey, hey, ho, ho. Mr. Tom, he's got to go. So anyway. Throw my soy latte. Should I put on my glasses and look? I mean, you know, maybe one day I'll do impressions for you guys. Maybe I'll do a Saturday night show one time if you guys want. And in fact, I tell you what, if you guys set me up a show on D Live or something, and I don't have to be accountable for it, maybe I'll come on. Invite me on your show. Mostly, I know some of you guys who have shows. Eki has a show. I'm going on his show tomorrow, and I'm going to be talking in a much more serious sense. I'm going to be on radio in Memphis actually in a couple days here with my friend James Edwards, and we're going to be talking about this seriously. It is a serious issue, but try to make it fun because otherwise it's so miserable. Because if you sit here and you think about this, right, and you're just thinking about this all the time in terms of, oh God, life is ending, don't think of life as ending. Think of a new world as beginning. And if you think of it that way, it can be a lot more fun. Yeah, it's a bit like playing a video game, but so is life. You know, you look out your eyes, you control these things, you do what you got to do. And I think that's kind of how we have to approach this because there are so many big things that are awful here. And honestly, they're beyond anyone's control at this point. You know, hopefully the Lord is looking out for us. You all know I'm a Christian. I take it seriously. You know, get saved or pay the price. That's up to you. But ultimately, when we're looking at these huge things, when we're having all these problems, we have to figure out some sort of way to keep our own shit together. And, you know, that's what I want to do. And what I'm encouraging with this. So we're looking at a lot of details. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Probably economics a lot. I think it was interesting. The whole market was down except for Gilead. They're the producers of Remdesivir. It's an antiviral drug that apparently the science of it is that it confuses the virus a little bit. It's what they do for HIV. Or that's not HIV, actually. It was another one they said it was for. I think it was for Ebola. Anyway, but it does apparently help. So I don't know if that's the case or not. But all right, so Donnie's telling me that Chongqing is the biggest city in China. So that absolutely would be true. And, you know, so there's a lot of problems in China and they're lying. But so are our governments. And I think they're just letting us know it's bad in Italy. I think it's bad everywhere. And we'll find out how bad this is. Hopefully. I almost have to hope that it's not as bad as I fear, because if it is, this is just, you know, we're just riding it out in this world, man. All you can do is hang out and smoke a blunt. I mean, I don't know what the hell else you can do. Just try to laugh and, you know, carry yourself through it. I mean, that's, you know, and that's realism. You know, you know, we have these big dreams and these big plans and these big thoughts. And it's funny how all that crap goes away. You know, for instance, 2 months ago, I was the feared, you know, nationalist supremacist Tom Kaczynski, and now I'm literally talking to people who wouldn't have spat on me because they're like, how do we survive? And that's the interesting thing about humanity, right? We're so tribal, and our tribal needs always override everything else. And right now, it's the tribe of people who want to survive against the people who don't. And you see this in Costa Mesa, California, you know, not exactly known as the biggest hotbed of conservatism. It leans a little right, but just saying, hell no, we don't want people here. In Alabama saying, well, the good Lord said we built the ark, get the hell off it, you know? And you literally see all these situations happening over and over again. It's going to be local. It's going to be tribal. And you got to be able to work with people in your area. And maybe there's something positive in this one aspect that our universal need to survive in our local areas will hopefully help us find a little bit of humanity at the beginning, because once this starts getting crazy, it ain't going to be out there. It's going to get ugly. And, you know, people who have been reckless, who have been irresponsible, who are not planning, they're going to be the ones who are going to act very badly. And frankly, they're going to suffer the consequences of that, or they're going to inflict them on us. nature doesn't exist in a vacuum. And for a very long time, we've lived in a make believe society where we have divorced actions from consequences. We have indulged every fantasy and we have pretended anything could be true just because we believe it. Virus rewrites the code, COVID makes a different script. Now things are going to get real and they're going to get real quick. So you better be ready for that. We talk about, 30 days of food, 90 days of food. You probably want a weapon, even if you just have a bat and you're willing to swing it. Well, you're one step ahead of the person who isn't thinking that way. These are the sorts of things you need to be thinking about. We talked about protection. You all had the fun of watching me go here, with my goggles. We'll do that a little while longer just because I think it's funny. So it'll be there. I gotta get used to wearing them too. But you see, then you get all the light and the glare off it. I look like I have a lifesaver in the middle of my eyes. They're targeting him. Target Tom. Sorry. Do you like my gunshot?
Yeah, it was great.
It was good.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, do you guys have any questions? You're supposed to ask questions on this chat. See, otherwise I have to entertain you for an hour. I mean, I'm in quarantine, and you're making me create my own entertainment. Where's the interactivity? Honest to God. Hey, good to see you, Landon. Hope all is well out there on the homestead. Important. But yeah, you're going to have to know stuff. I mean, if you can't do anything else, you guys do let me do all the work. What the hell? I mean, that's the same way it is. It's the reason I had to shut down that one chat room. Because everyone did, there were people I knew, and all they could do is fight with each other all the time. At least people are now focused on something better. I mean, it's interesting, right? People, I hate to say it, but people basically suck in the absence of a challenge. It's the perfect example of why welfareism is absolutely awful. It just makes us into rotten beings. I mean, the truth of it is, and I hate to say this, but people are better when we're treated like crap. And it kind of is true because it requires us to go to a higher level, right? We find the demand in ourselves. And I even said this in my own life, those of you who know me and have seen some of my other videos, I live in the far north because it's hard. I have to go out there and I shovel snow and I don't get someone to do it for me. And even when I try doing it, the idiot doesn't ever show up. So I end up having to go out there for 3 hours shoveling snow, and that's okay. I don't mind. And I go out there and, oh, that's a lovely question. Where do babies come from? Your mom. That's the answer. Don't ask me that question. Was that savage? Oh, man. Where do babies come from? So anyway, I don't know. Let's see. Where have you heard anything about kinetic? I don't know. No, I don't know anything about kinetic. I know one thing. What's with the freaky spelling, man? It's like they took the NyQuil. You remember there's this great Dennis Leary bit from back in the day where he talks about NyQuil. And he's saying that it's got a giant fucking Q on it. And that's what makes you take it. I mean, everything, like every drug now has a name with like a Q or a V or an X. Xylantra. It makes you go to the bathroom and get your stuff up. Xylantra.
Oh my God.
In and out. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, marketing is so cynical these days. I must be losing my crap. You guys have no idea. I'm actually really funny. People who hate me, never know this, but it's fine. So, all right, we'll bring another 10 minutes of humor, and then I'll end it. It's 7:49. Will people come together as a community or turn on each other if things get bad? Will writes. Great question. And the answer is, have you prepared the ground? How well can you handle it? The answer is, if people are not prepared and their survival is at stake, they will turn on each other. People will do what is necessary to survive. So what you need to do, and this is a challenge for absolutely everybody, but it's important, you need to be out in front of this and say, okay, talk to your neighbors, talk to your community, make sure there's resources, and make sure you're in a position where you have enough people in a given area who can trust one another that you don't descend into Mad Max world. If you live in a city, that's not you. In fact, if you live anywhere on the coast of California, that's probably not you either. Or if you live, in certain areas, if you live in a big city, you're going to have problems. If you live in an apartment building, I had someone ask me, what I thought about that, how to prepare for it. I don't know, go live in the woods or something. I hate to say it, but it's really a challenge because people are a threat. And, do not count on the government to protect you. Count on you to protect yourself. If you want to help people and you can get extra resources and look to have resources you can work together, part of the solution to this, if this ends up being a breakdown scenario, absolutely has to be that people have to have the plan to grow things, to build things, to take care of things, and be realistic about your expectations. You can quarantine your town, but if someone's kids come crying from, I'm up here in Maine, if they came crying from Boston, please let us in, please let us in. There's no way they're not going to want to let them in, so you better plan to quarantine them because you're not going to say, no, we're shooting them, because then you're going to have a traitor in your midst. So you got to think of the motives of the people around you. You got to think very seriously about how you're going to handle those questions. Yeah, no, Eki, you're screwed. Get out of LA. I know where you are, buddy. Just do it. So, honestly, there's a Kurt Russell movie you might want to watch. Maybe it'll be inspiration. We can talk about that tomorrow. So bad. Am I dating myself? I'm an old man. All right, my favorite canned meat, Spam. No, it's not Spam. We don't like Spam. You know what? It's actually good. If you get the Underwood white chicken spread, it will be the true patrician meal of the apocalypse because it's actually kind of nice. It's all tender white meat. It's a little more expensive, but if you get chunk white meat, chunk white tuna, I think those are two good choices. You can get like 4 big cans at Walmart for $8. I think that's absolutely a good way to go about it. That is pretty smart. And you know, I do think the power will probably stay on. So if you're worried about that, you probably want to prepare inside. I mean, get a tomato plant. It's so cliche, but they actually grow pretty fast. I think you'll be pretty happy about that. So let's see. Jose, let's see. Reese's negative. Slovak PM meeting with Merkel infected. Is that true? It is true the Slovakian PM was in fact sick. We don't know it's coronavirus, but you know, if it is, and we see half of Europe's governments go down, that will be interesting, don't you think? Let's see. Sardines, another good choice. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good choices. You guys know what to get: rice, beans, a water supply. Yeah, but the biggest thing is just have situational awareness. Escape from New York was good. There's a lot of good movies. You know, sort of apocalyptic planning movies. You know, if you haven't seen, actually, I would make a recommendation. If you haven't seen Contagion, it's actually a pretty decent description of what a faster moving panic would look like than this. One of the big problems with COVID-19 is it's so damn slow. You begin to doubt yourself. You're like, is this apocalypse happening? Or do I have to go back to watching the football game? And, well, I guess it's hockey season, right? Whatever it is. But ultimately, the fact is exponential progression is happening really quickly. It's just that we are in such a dopamine driven system there. Things go so fast that if we see that the number of cases has doubled overnight, we're like, well, that took a really long time. And I don't think we have attention spans. I actually think this is a big problem. We have two big problems. There's both the normalcy bias, right? That people want to believe things are always going to be the way they are because they don't know anyone else who's like it. Like, let's be honest. How many people were watching this, seeing it in Asia, being like, well, you know, they're Asians. It's not going to happen to Europeans. Like, somehow we're magically that different. And look, I've been out there. I talk about race, okay? I talk about publicly. I talk about it openly. But what I'm saying is that ultimately, basic anatomy is pretty much the same, you know, unless you mutilate yourself. And those people are probably busy hugging one another. They're not going to survive this. These are the sorts of things that, you know, we can think about. So when you become aware of things and when you become aware of what's happening in nature and that what's coming along, you begin to realize certain things are going to happen in a very fast pace naturally is not necessarily fast as we go. A hurricane takes days to get to you. Nature's huge. It takes time for volume and inertia. As Eki's saying, and I think he's absolutely right, this is going to go nuts in March. And that's only 5 days from now. It's already Italy, the next country, Iran. I hear there's a lot of cases being hidden in Saudi Arabia. And look, up until 3 days ago, Africa didn't even have the ability to test for cases. So, and that's according to the World Health Organization. That's just not me. So ultimately, all these things out there, this is going to be big. It's going to blow up, and we'll see what happens. I mean, what the crisis, the first crises will be the following. Number one, it will be that when the economic system goes ahead and the debt bubble bursts and you can't buy things in the store, what are people going to do? The second part is what's going to happen when you can't get the antibiotics you need. Secondary bacterial infections get people dead, and you have people going to hospitals to get cured who can't be treated. That is what's going to happen. And I will say, this is not SARS 2.0. Will makes a great point. It is different. I personally believe, my own personal thoughts, I cannot prove this, is that someone took a SARS base of the coronavirus and they melded certain genetic aspects from HIV, from dengue fever, from influenza, and from MERS. And I believe this because there are functions. This HIV attacks the T cells. MERS, it has a gain function, which means that when it gets around more people, it seems to accelerate. Have you noticed that this transmission rate seems very calm for a while, like it's almost hiding, and then once it goes there, it starts going like it's a slasher movie, like something Quentin Tarantino made back when you didn't think he was as paused as you do now? these sorts of things, right? So this is what you see: influenza. It's spreading through upper nose respiratory levels, and these things are out there. I've been sharing I'm saying it in a funny way tonight to make it easier for you guys, but if you read the serious papers, the research is out there talking about all of these things from the beginning. So what about Mexico and South America? Chile might be okay. I don't know. One of the things that we've noticed in our group, we have dengue fever has been an outbreak in Latin America, and I have been wondering if this virus is chimerical to the extent, how should I put it, that in different areas it looks like different things, right? It might look like dengue fever in South America. It might look like influenza in or in North America. It might look like bird flu, H1N1 in Germany. We had a huge outbreak of that. And it might look like something different in Asia. It might look like SARS. And I think that that is really the problem. We really don't know what the hell this is. I mean, the science is starting to catch up, but we don't know. We don't know what it does long term. We don't know when reinfection. We just know it's bad. A lot of people are dying. Governments are lying to us, and we don't have accurate information. If we had accurate information, we could make assessments, and maybe I'd be less paranoid. But honestly, I worked in government. You guys know this, and government knows how to keep secrets. I've sat in on FEMA meetings before, and usually most people at the lowest levels don't know. The unique thing is only one person has to keep one little bit of information apart, and if they do so well enough, a lot of things can happen. So let me answer. So I got a good question here. Amber Austin writes, is the source that you have for the medicine reliable? I have medication I have to take. So I will share with you, because I want to be helpful here, what my sourcing is. And this is one of the things that makes my podcast really helpful, which is if you go to coronaviruscentral.net, what you will find is that I put links to everything I reference. So I hope that helps you. That you have the opportunity to look at this, and that it tells you about the healthcare. But you asked me, so that's for Amber. We don't know specifically which ones. I've tried to find out. That effort is being kept very quiet. But if you want a hint, if you see certain medicine stocks or medicine manufacturers going way down, look at what they make and expect those are the key medications that will be a problem. What we do know is that 90% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients come from China, and they are not coming out now, and they probably will not be for the near future. So you can a lot of times get pet meds in certain cases. You can also request a 90-day prescription. I suggest looking for naturopathic alternatives, and if you're stuck on something where you are ultimately required to take this without having terrible withdrawal, I would say it's not a terrible idea to begin trying to wean yourself off if you can. I know certain benzos, SSRIs, different things, not passing any judgment or asking for information. I'm just saying these are things to be aware of. So, the news outlets are terrible. I read mine in Spanish, French, and Italian. So, and I have people read me the ones in other countries. They're lying across the board. Singapore's been better than most. I mean, they're not terrible, but it's not good. And but in South America, I don't think it'll be good. But I don't think they'll know. I mean, one of the weird ironies of COVID-19 is that if you knock someone back to the Stone Ages and their civilizations in the Bronze Age, it's not as traumatic if you go there from somewhere that's way up. So when you have a lot to fall, those levels of cascading are really a problem. And that's why my own personal prediction is I think the West is going to get hit hardest by this, mainly because we're the most helpless. And we have a lot of technology and attributes, but it's kind of like you watch those old alien movies, right? And then the aliens have all this super technology, and then somehow the thing crashes, and you see a guy come out with it's like a giant brain, and he's just like, and then they just punch him, and he gets knocked over. That's how the West has become with technology. We have become utterly dependent on our tools around us, and they're brilliant tools, but they've turned us into their servants rather than as individual, independent people. So really, what you need to do is start getting yourself prepared to be a higher capacity person. You're going to need to for yourself, your family, and everything else. Go ahead, reserve the things you need. If you need to save your coffee, because we know some of us here need that, go ahead and get some. I mean, look, we did the same thing up here. Make it manageable for yourself. And the other thing I want to say is, it's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of grief if things go badly. There's going to be a lot of panic. There's going to be a lot of paranoia. Not everyone can do this. No one can do it completely. But if you can come to terms with the worst case scenario walking in here, you'll walk out much better at the end of it, because then you won't have to be so caught up in the momentary stress and struggle that is going to be a big part of this disease. And everyone else who's talking about this, everyone is out there peddling optimism. And look, I love optimism, but someone needs to be telling you what you do when things don't go well. Because let's be honest, lately the odds have not been in our favor. Okay, we're rolling through District 13, watching for the bombs falling around our head. It's the way of it. Okay. And so we need to be serious about it, and we can have some fun with it. That's what this podcast is here for. I do it, like I said, every day except Sunday. I take off, celebrate the Sabbath, take it easy, pray, try to sleep, and hang with this. But I'm going to give you guys the straight dope, whatever I have. If you have questions, I'll give you honest answers. You don't have to like them. We will talk about them. And, if you have questions in between, send them via Twitter, send them. You guys know all the ways to find me. I mean, it's not hard to find me. So, and it's not, and like S70 saying, it's not pessimism. It's realism. It's survival. I mean, the good news is, look, every one of us has genetics in us that has lasted for thousands of years, that has figured out how to get through messes that are far worse than this. There are bigger things to get through. We can do it. But the key to it is you can't fight the virus beyond what you sustain your body with. So make sure it's strong, vitamin C, and quarantine yourself. If this starts getting really bad, man, stay home. That's all you can do. And if it costs you things, it costs you things. You can't, it's too massive. Like Landon asked, when am I going to leave my job because of this? I do construction building. I mean, for the moment, you can go ahead, have a mask, have certain things. But I'll tell you what, when you start seeing that, you see the first quarantines happen, and they'll probably happen either in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle, or LA. It'll be probably one of those places. I make an outside chance in Spokane, Washington, because they have a lot of cases there. Or Omaha, Nebraska, they dumped a lot of the people there who came in on the Diamond Princess. Those are the places you need to watch. That's what I'm watching. Boston's another hot spot too. I think that those are difficult places. I believe it's probably already there. They just don't have the numbers yet, and they can't at this point. I mean, look, they're saying they can contain it now. That went out the window. It's absolutely gone. I will say the biggest area of Chinese people in New York is New York City, so probably there. But it could come so many places. It could become Iranians, Vancouver, Toronto. Yeah. Don't hold your breath. Actually, holding your breath's not so bad, because when you wear these things, it's really weird. It's hard to breathe in a negative pressure environment. They always say practice your preps, man. You guys need to know this. Absolutely do that, and recognize this: the government is going to defend the government. So if things get really crappy for a little while, they'll defend the cities. Then after that, they'll kind of just retreat into a comfy corridor somewhere near DC and wherever there are blocks of power, and you're going to see things fall apart, man. Whatever you got local, man, that's what it's going to be. And local could be neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street, floor by floor. But if you don't have resources, people are going to go out there and get them. And that's why I'm telling you, you need to go out there, get your resources now, understand your access to them, and recognize that that's going to be the problem, because resupply is not coming. China's not sending you more stuff. In America, when it goes, America is the last major source of agricultural goods, enough to help sustain the world. You'll be okay if you're in the upper Midwest or somewhere like that eventually, assuming you have some food put aside. But in the longer term, I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And Spider, I don't want to quarantine at your house. What?
You guys. I mean, it was a cool spider. It just startled me. That's all.
We're gonna have Dana's show of spiders. That'll be awesome. My wife is a tough woman when it comes to a lot of things, but not when it comes to a spider.
So they don't understand the backstory though, because I was laying.
You're on air. So
yeah, I know. I was laying in bed like a week and a half ago, and this thing comes crawling over my shoulder in my bed, and it just really startled me. I ended up falling out of bed, hurting my foot pretty bad. Ended up in the emergency room, so I still have.
Do kill the bugs, though. That's true.
Yeah, well,
if you're gonna do ecology of like home management,
I don't mind having them in here. I just don't want them like right next to me. That's all.
Do not startle my wife. She might go off on you.
No, I might have a heart attack. Is what.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to have her have a heart attack. That would be very bad. So I think we're up on an hour here. If anyone has any last minute questions, I'll hold on for one more minute just in case there's anything else. I'll be back. I've been doing a show on Facebook for quite a long time. Some of you have come here. Some of you don't know that. So we will go ahead and we will continue to do this. This is called unscripted because I say whatever comes to mind. If you guys ask a lot of questions related to the disease, you'll get a show that has a lot of answers about the disease. If you ask a lot of questions about things not related to the disease, you'll get an interesting show that hopefully won't get me kicked off iTunes. Everyone stay safe. I will be saying prayers for you all. Please be careful. And tomorrow, Eki, why don't you plug your show? Because I'm going to come on tomorrow. Just put it out there so this will happen. Aster asked, where do you think this will be a week from now? I think that we will see outbreaks in multiple European countries. I think the caseload in the United States will definitely have to be upwards of 100, and I would not be surprised to see a cluster forming. And I think the market will be down potentially 5 to 10 more percent, and people will begin their quiet panic buying. I do think we'll probably hold on one more week before things get crazy. We're going to be, I would say the first week of March is really going to be bad. And hopefully you all enjoyed the show. I'm doing what I can. I want to say thank you to everyone who's been out there, listening to the podcast every morning. There's also everything's simulcast here. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe, like, so I can manage to not get paid by Google, who goes ahead and lies about me anyway. But I don't care. We'll be here as long as we can be. If anyone wants to share the stream, you have my absolute permission. If you make a couple shekels off of it, go ahead and send me some. I definitely could always use that. And if you want to simulcast on DLive, you guys are working on that. That's fine. I will do that. And in fact, if you can figure out a way where I can see it on screen, I'll even respond to some of those questions as well. I have no technological or technical capacities. We all know that. You've listened to my podcast. But actually it has a really cool song at the beginning of it. So, I mean, I could actually, you guys might appreciate this. Do you think they'd hear it if I played the, they probably wouldn't because it's playing on the computer speaker, huh?
I have no
It
idea.
isn't. So let me grab real fast. I mean, listen to how badass this theme is. Just give me 1 second here. I want you to hear it because not all of you have heard this. And this is like the new theme we have for this. So let's just see what we got. Give me 1 second. Let's see. No, you don't want to hear me talk. We want to hear the cool theme. Because you hear enough of me. You've had to listen to me for... You see how I can't even use an iPhone. This is true boomer hours, here. Because, sometimes you get old and technology gets away from you. But I'll just play this on the iPhone here. So tell me how cool that is. This is like the theme of it. Oh, don't put too close. You don't get feedback. And I want to thank my friend Mark who did this. This was absolutely awesome. So this was just the new theme for it. It's real hardcore, right? Yeah, that's badass. Okay. So, because we're going to have a little fun with it. Whatever. Welcome to the new age. It's radioactive, right? That's what we call symbols out there. And it's a chance for nature to reassert itself. A lot of us have been expecting this from a long time. It didn't happen the way we thought, but hey, you know what? That's life. Thank you, everyone who's been here. Thank you, Seaver. Thank you, Aster. Thank you, Postman. Thank you, Woke. Everyone who's here. And we will be streaming on Eki Lux. We'll see what Eki has for me. Always good questions. And if you want me to come on, you got a show, let me know. I'll do it. Just don't ask me to come in the morning because I'm too busy right now. I will come in the evening. And God bless you guys. So I will talk to you later. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. You guys have a good night.